I know you don't like talking about dreams, but
okay.
It's not normally that scene I get my first, oh God.
Well, you don't normally open with dreams, my friend.
So one minor bit of follow-up, and I feel kind of almost guilty now to our Norwegian listeners after my fun little joke last episode about Magnus Carlsen being from Sweden, which I deliberately said and then pointed out he was Norwegian. That did cause a minor kerfuffle among Norwegians who love their Magnus. So apologies to those people. It was a joke, which I said very quickly it was a joke.
But how much feedback did you get, Brady? Because you were deliberately provoking feedback from people who listen to the podcast, pause immediately in their rage and reply to you. So I'm curious, how much feedback along those lines did you actually get from people?
Probably 20 to 30 people.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
And I did get a few tweets where people were like tweeting angrily at me and then a few seconds later like sending apology tweets. My favourite, which I think I shared with the Twitter audience, was I was looking at my timeline and there was one person who followed me, 2 seconds later angrily tweeted me, 5 seconds later sent a tweet saying sorry, and you could see the whole thing play out on the Twitter timeline in real time. It was quite funny. I will point out that Magnus Carlsen did win the World Chess Championship.
Oh, did he? Okay.
He did. But in circumstances that make me unhappy.
Oh, why? What happened?
Well, they played best of 12, which might sound silly because it's an even number, but because you get so many draws in chess, it's irrelevant whether you play an even or odd number of games, really. They won one game each, and all of the rest were drawn. This was against the Russian Sergei Karyakin. It was 6 points all after 12 games, because you get half a point each for a draw. And then the way they decided it was with this tiebreaker situation. And there were this series of tiebreakers they were going to go through. The first was, in one day, they played a best of 4 rapid chess games.
Oh, like speed chess?
Yeah. Maybe it was like hour-ish games. And if that didn't sort it out, they were going to go to a faster version. And if that didn't work out, they were then going to go to this form of chess called Armageddon chess, which has got super extreme time limits. And if no one has won by the time limit, then the person playing the black pieces is declared the winner. So there has to be a winner of Armageddon chess.
Wow, that seems deeply unfair on every level.
Well, I guess, white has the advantage of starting, and I don't know. It didn't matter because it was sorted out in the rapid chess. In the first best of 4, they played 2 draws, and then Carlsen won the next 2 to be crowned world champion. They already have world championships of these other speeds of chess. So I think deciding the ultimate world chess champion in the long form of the game, having it then decided with this other form of chess, is deeply wrong. And also, it's well known that Magnus Carlsen is very good. I mean, he's very good at all chess, obviously, but he's considered to have an even greater advantage over Karyakin at speed chess. And I think the feeling was once things sort of evened out, he would be happy to play for the draw because he thought he could take out the Russian in the speed chess, which he then did. And I think this is unfair and a wrong way to have sorted out the World Chess Championship in the long form of the game, to have the world champion basically decided by the guy who's the best at rapid chess. I'm not happy. I still think Carlsen's the best chess player in the world, and perhaps I think the fairest thing to have done with a draw championship would be for the defending champion to have kept his title anyway. So I'm quite happy that Magnus Carlsen has remained world champion, but I don't like that it was sorted out in this speedy chess format.
Yeah, I'm going to completely agree with you here. I mentioned last time that I used to play chess, and then I got kind of bored with the game when I realized it's about recognizing patterns. But I did for a while continue to play very rapid speed chess, so where you put maybe 5 or 10 minutes on the clock for both people. That was fun because it was just a totally different game. You couldn't spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. But I imagine for grandmasters who are really honed in on the precise nature of the game, that the difference between the long form version and the hour version might as well be a speed chess kind of game. I totally agree with you. It's like if they're doing a faster version of chess at the end, it feels like they should almost just arm wrestle for the championship. It feels a little bit like we're going to decide the world champion of one game by playing another game. I agree with you. I don't like it. I think they should just keep playing until somebody breaks the draw. If it takes 100 games, just keep playing. That's what they should do.
That could have been pretty awesome. Just so you know, by the way, rapid chess can have different speeds between 10 and 60 minutes. In this particular case, it was 25 minutes with 10-second increments per move.
That's still reasonably fast, though. Interesting.
Yeah. The Blitz game, if it went to that, it would have been 5 minutes with 3-second increments.
Yeah.
And then if it went to the Armageddon game, which kind of would have been kind of cool, it's actually white pieces get 5 minutes and the black pieces get 4 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, like I agree with you. It would be kind of cool to see it go to this Armageddon version, but it feels totally arbitrary. This feels unsatisfactory.
This to me feels very much like what's called a penalty shootout in soccer. Are you familiar with a penalty shootout?
That's the thing at the end where they kick 4 times?
5 times each. So if
Right.
a soccer game's drawn and a draw is unacceptable for some reason, like it's a knockout game in a World Cup or something, they will just take penalty kicks from the penalty spot past the goalkeeper, which also I've always thought was a deeply unfair way to decide a soccer game because it's such a niche discipline of the game. But I guess you've got to sort out draws in a timely way sometimes.
I don't know. I feel like if it matters this much, we should just keep going. And I'll agree with you with the soccer games. It's like, oh, just keep playing. Someone will eventually score a point. We might be here for 5 hours, but what's the problem? Let's keep going.
You do have a slight problem as well, though. This is another famous story that I'm assuming you won't be familiar with, but it's a bit of a classic in the world of sport.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, in tennis sets are first to win 6 games.
Okay.
But you have to win by 2. So you can win the set 6-4 or 6-3 or 6-2, but you can't win 6-5.
Huh. Okay, so there's a margin you have to overcome.
Yeah, you have to win by 2. This is to compensate for the fact the person who serves in a game has a big advantage. So you have to break the other person's serve at least once. This is why it exists.
I like your intense sports voice. You use this every once in a while when you're talking about sports.
This is my favourite stuff. It used to be in the olden times you would just keep playing and it could go to 8-6 or it could go to 10-8 and you would keep playing until someone got an advantage of 2. Someone broke the other person's serve. This resulted in the introduction of the tiebreaker. So if a set of tennis gets to 6-all, you play sort of a special kind of mini game called a tiebreaker. It's like a penalty shootout or like a blitz game of chess. Whoever wins that tiebreaker wins the set 7-6. You move on to the next set. But in Grand Slam tournaments such as Wimbledon, it's considered unfair to decide the whole match on tiebreakers. So in, say, a men's game, which is best of 5 sets, the first 4 sets can be decided by tiebreakers.
Okay.
But if you get to 2-all and you're playing the 5th and deciding set, it's considered unfair to decide that with a tiebreaker. So it goes to the old-fashioned way of you have to win by 2. And like you're saying, you could play forever. You'll just keep taking it in turns games, one person serving, then the other person serving, until someone wins the set by 2. There was a very famous match in 2010 at Wimbledon between a guy called John Isner from the United States and a guy called Nicolas Mahut, who is French. Isner won the first set, 6-4, and then Mahut won the second set, 6-3. And then the next 2 sets both went to tiebreakers and were shared. So it came to the 5th set. Both of them are quite good servers, so it's hard to break their serve. And this set went for a long time. And in fact, it was finally won by Isner. The final set was won 70-68.
Oh my God.
And the tennis match went for over 11 hours and was played over 3 days.
Whoa.
One was serving, then the other was serving, and like they couldn't break each other's serve, and it just kept going. It's been called the endless match.
Wow.
So that's the danger you could have had with Kariakin and Carlsen. Imagine that, a year and a half, just draw after draw after draw.
Maybe in retrospect, I am underestimating just how closely matched the best in the world can be. And so my formula of just keep playing until you break the draw might actually be a terrible idea under many more circumstances than I think it would be.
I would still prefer it. Or you just say that the world champion retains their crown if they can't be beaten in the format that is given to the challenger. I don't know. I guess that's a bit unsatisfying in this day and age, but...
But I think that seems not unreasonable.
Okay.
I do have to say, Brady, though, listening to you describe lovingly all of the little details of the sport, which rapidly fly by me as soon as you have said them, I feel like I am forever dreading and looking forward to the inevitable day when you take me to a cricket game and explain all of the cricket to me. Like, this has been on our list of things to do for a long time. I do want to have it happen, but listening to you talk now, I have that feeling of like, that'll be a fun day. and also an incredibly mentally exhausting day.
For me too, though. I'm so frustrated by it already because...
It hasn't even happened.
I know, because there's such a balancing act between just understanding the fundamentals of the game, the rules of the game, and then the nuance and the game within the game, which is what people love so much. But you can't appreciate that until you understand the game. You don't know which way to sort of tip it. Do I lovingly explain the game within the game and the nuance, or do I have to just explain the basic rules? And it's hard to get that right.
I mean, this is actually like what our job is with making sort of educational YouTube videos as well, right? It's like this is always the problem, especially when you assume that the person listening, like in this case with cricket, knows essentially nothing. You can very quickly work yourself into a situation where it's hard as the more knowledgeable person to know where to begin. Because it's like there's lots of stuff that's interesting once you know all of the background, but it can be kind of hard to disentangle what's confusing for someone new to this topic. And I think with the sports stuff, what you may find is you might have to go way more basic than you're even imagining, because there's probably lots of things common to all sports that you just don't even realize that I am unaware of, that we might have to start with ground assumptions. So,
okay. So the reason I brought it up was because we have a little bit of follow-up. We were talking about the new Norwegian banknotes a while ago, which had some quite cool designs. And I was contacted by Tim the other day, and he told me that they're official now. The ones that we discussed way back when and linked to in the show notes have been slightly tweaked since and honed and refined and signed off, and they have now got their final newly designed banknotes. They don't look much different to me. They're pretty much how we discussed them last time, sort of nautical objects and things like lighthouses and fishing boats. And then on the other side, a really weird, abstract, blurred pixelation of the same images. But that was all well and good. But then I was trying to read a bit more about it, thinking, how are people responding to them? And at that point, I realised they're actually still not in circulation yet. This is one of these news stories that has about 18 false starts.
Like water on Mars?
Yeah, water on Mars, exactly like that, yeah. So, although the designs have been finalised, they don't start hitting people's wallets and purses until around the middle of next year. But one thing that I did find interesting was this news story I read. It said these banknotes have been described as the world's most beautiful banknotes, in quotes. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder who did that. And then I've done a bit more digging, and it seems like there's no real source to it, and it actually comes from the Norwegian bank itself. Was that by like the designer's mum or the head of the bank? Or some official design organisation. And it did make me think, it's amazing how just throwing something out there, and especially putting it in quotes, actually, I've got an idea. I'm going to do a tweet. I'm just going to write, hello internet, : and then in quote marks, world's most interesting podcast. What I'll do then is I'll put a little dash 2016, because when you do that as well, it seems like more official.
Okay, perfect.
I'm putting that out there.
All right, I'll retweet it, help spread it along.
You read it first on Twitter. So Norway may have the world's most beautiful banknotes, and they're now being discussed on the world's most interesting podcast.
You're just putting that quote out there.
We had a few retweets and likes already, so word's getting out. I mean, you are a fan of these banknotes, as am I. What do you think of world's most beautiful banknotes? Are you willing to endorse that?
Again, I'm a fan of these notes, but that exact quote, like the world's most beautiful, I'm not sure I could sign off on that.
Maybe they're the world's coolest banknotes.
That's what it should be, right? Brady Haran, 2016, world's coolest banknotes. But what this doesn't seem to me like is almost designed by committee. Like, they've made some bold choices. It doesn't mean that I necessarily like everything that they have done, but I like that they're visually distinct banknotes. They look different from other stuff that I've seen. Thumbs up on this one, Norway. But most beautiful, I'm not 100% sure. I like your description way better.
Well, maybe the Bank of Norway will update their website and have my description instead. That would be a coup for the world's most interesting podcast.
On this holiday season episode of Hello Internet, I want to welcome a fantastic new sponsor to the show, Away. First-class luggage at a coach price. Just the other day, I found waiting for me in my office a surprise. This company had shipped me their travel luggage to take a look at. And I have to say, I am really picky about this stuff, but I am very, very impressed with their luggage. Away is a company that was founded by two friends from New York who found themselves at JFK with dead phones, delayed flights, and a bright idea. Luggage with power. That's actual electrical power is what they're talking about here. Not only have they manufactured a very high quality, really sturdy suitcase, they've also put into it a battery with USB and micro USB outlets to charge all of your devices while you're traveling. I don't know about you, but when I'm traveling, I always get really paranoid about the battery on my phone. Actually, paranoid isn't the right word because I really do run into this problem all the time where my phone just runs out of charge when I'm traveling. Even if I put it in low power mode, it becomes a thing that I have to babysit. But Away luggage with their built-in battery will allow you to charge your iPhone 5 times over. Having that while you're traveling is just such an incredible peace of mind. It takes the phone's battery from something that you have to worry about and that you have to babysit to something that you just never have to think about. But this is just one of the features that impressed me with this suitcase. They're also using just such high quality materials. It just feels like a really solid suitcase as soon as you touch it. So many suitcases, they're really flimsy, right? The zippers don't zip very well, right? The outside materials don't feel sturdy and strong. Not this suitcase. It's made with premium German polycarbonate, unrivaled in strength and impact resistance, while still being very lightweight. The other thing that really matters is it's a 4-wheel suitcase. Now, if you've never used a 4-wheel suitcase, you need to change the way you live right now. If you think 2 wheels is adequate, you are wrong. The difference between 4 wheels and 2 wheels on a suitcase is just as big as the difference between 2 wheels and no wheels. Being able to take a suitcase and have it by your side all the time like a really well-heeled dog changes the way you can move around an airport. The suitcase is always just right by your side. It changes the way you interact with lines. It changes the way you move in a crowd. It changes the turning radius that you can make when you're moving around. It's so fantastic. But not all 4-wheeled suitcases are made the same. So when they sent me this suitcase, I took it out the other night on rough London streets under all sorts of different circumstances to make sure that these wheels worked really well, and I have to say they passed with flying colors. There are so many features about this thing, I couldn't possibly run through them all, but I do want to mention just a couple other quick things. They have a TSA-approved combination lock that is built right into the top of the bag to help secure your belongings, but also make sure that the security agencies in the United States don't rip open your bags if they ever want to take a look on the inside. That's a thing that will really ruin your day, right? American security in the airlines is enough of a hassle. It's really unpleasant when they tear open your bag to get inside of it. A TSA-approved lock, that will avoid a really unpleasant situation on the other end of your flight. So this is also, like 4 wheels, a bag has to have a TSA-approved lock on it. Of course, the carry-on size is compliant with all US major airlines, while also maximizing the amount that you can possibly pack inside of it with this clever patent-pending compression system that they're using, which is quite neat. There's just so much about this that makes it a really great suitcase. It's obviously like an engineering mindset applied to the problem of traveling and packing. They're so confident in this suitcase, they offer a lifetime warranty. If anything breaks, they'll fix it or replace it, and they give you a 100-day trial to use it. You can take this suitcase on flights for 3 months to put it through its paces and see that it is the correct suitcase for you. And if you don't like it, you can return it for a full refund, no questions asked. So right now, go to awaytravel.com/HI to get $20 off your suitcase when you use the promo code HI during checkout. And if you order by 1 p.m. Eastern on December 21st with 2-day shipping, your suitcase will arrive in time for the holiday, which could be great for your travel, or it could make a great gift. I'm just saying, it's a fantastic suitcase, and we all know people who have really sad suitcases, and we're very likely to see them during the holidays. So fantastic gift if you want to do that as well. And if you're a really last-minute shopper, or you're listening to this podcast late, e-gift cards are also available, and also much smaller to put under the Christmas tree. So once again, thank you to Away Travel for sponsoring this episode of Hello Internet, and you should go to awaytravel.com/HI to check out their suitcase and get $20 off with promo code HI.
Got a couple of viewer emails. I liked this one. Hello, Brady. I'm a firefighter, paramedic in Virginia. Stumbled across Hello Internet podcast recently. I listen quite often during training exercises and workouts at the station. Due to the nature of the job, I have quite a bit of downtime, and I've listened to the first 40 podcasts in about 3 weeks' time. Not bad. So within a month, I should be caught up to current. I wanted to share an interesting story regarding the podcast at my job. I was listening during a workout, and we received a call for a structure fire just down the street. I rushed to throw in my gear and jump in the truck to head to the incident. Upon arrival, there was heavy smoking showing from the structure. A very frantic lady ran up to us. She stated her dog was still in the structure on the second floor.
Oh, no.
Here he lapses into normal language. As we entered the house, so we now know what the structure is, I somehow restarted the podcast in my pocket and still had the earbuds in. I ironically was listening to the story of Derek the skydiver in episode 44, jump out of planes while listening to the podcast. So nice little symmetry there. And although it was absolutely incidental, I just wanted to let you know that you and Gray played a small part in saving a golden retriever from a burning building. Not bad, eh?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I like that one.
And it does sound very legitimate with the firefighter lingo. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like all these stories, it could be made up. I believe it. I believe it's true. There was no photographic verification provided, which I always enjoy in emails. But for all I know, that could be a work of fan fiction. But if so, well done.
Yeah, I'll let it pass. But next time, if you're a firefighter saving a dog in a burning building, we would like the headcam footage with the Hello Internet audio playing in the background at the same time, just to be sure.
That would get you a Hello Internet Medal of Honor. I also wanted to share another viewer interaction from a while ago. I can't believe I forgot to tell this story, but also I just realised I'm on brilliant accidental pun form today, because this will be a truncated version of a story about trunks. Because, as you know... I don't mind an old trunk, an old steamer trunk from the good old days.
You have a magnificent one in your house.
Yeah, the coffee table in our lounge is a lovely old steamer trunk with old initials stenciled on it and still some old stickers from the days when it was going on ships and things. I love that they've got like names painted on them and they've got a bit of a story to them. I like that they've got a history. And they're also nice looking objects and they're quite useful for storing things as well. So it's win-win-win. So I recently had an email from a Tim in New Zealand who came across a trunk they thought I might like. I've got it here in the room next to me. You can tell how the story's going to end already. It was used on a passenger liner called the SS Ionic, I believe, as in Ionic Bond, travelling New Zealand to London. And the passenger's name, which is painted on it rather ornately, is Miss Harron. It's always been my dream to find a trunk with like BJH, but to have one with my surname, which is reasonably unusual, was a coup. So this Tim from New Zealand said, look what I just found in an antique store, like around the corner. And I was like, can you go back and take some more pictures of it? So he went back and took more pictures and sent them to me. And I was like, you just got to buy that thing. You got to buy it for me now and send it to me. I don't care about the cost. So he did. And I PayPal'd him the money. Apparently, he did a bit of negotiating for me and got a few New Zealand dollars knocked off the price. And then he shipped it to me. I think the shipping cost more than the trunk itself.
Right, of course, of course.
And it now has pride of place in one of my offices here. I'll post a picture in the show notes if people want to see my Miss Harron trunk. It's quite big. I think you could probably fit 7 Audreys in it, maybe.
Wow, a trunk large enough for 7 chihuahuas.
Yeah. Maybe. You'd have to pack them in tightly.
Of course you would.
So it's a decent size, but it was an absolute coup. So thank you very much.
That is an absolute coup. I am just delighted at the idea of you doing antique shopping through Twitter is essentially what you're doing. Like crowdsourced antique shopping is what's occurring here. This is amazing.
Can I put a shout out for the other thing I'm in the market for at the moment in case any Tims can help me out with my antiquing?
Oh my God. Please go right ahead. I guarantee you this will not be cut.
The thing I'm in the market for at the moment, and I'm finding it hard to find, and I do have very strict requirements because the room I need to get it in is a very difficult room to negotiate large objects into. And also, obviously, it has to be in the UK because it's a big, heavy thing I want. But what I want at the moment for my second office / film studio is an old school tech studies bench with a couple of vices on it. You know those old wooden ones that have got like a million old marks and dents in them?
I don't know what you mean. A tech study bench?
What do you call the subject at school where you would do like woodwork and things like that?
Oh, I call it like a shop class, I think. Is that what you mean?
They're called tech studies in the UK and in Australia. So I want those old wooden benches where you would do woodwork at school on, probably from an old school. And I want it to be all dented up and have things engraved in it and like have a real history and a story. And then I might like, buff it up and polish it a bit. That would look nice, wouldn't it?
I think that would look nice. That would look absolutely lovely.
So I'm on eBay looking at them. So don't just send me like obvious ones on eBay because I would have seen them already. It does have to be a little on the small side. But if you work in a school in the UK and you're throwing away your tech studies benches and that. But I will be fussy. Well, in particular, my wife especially will be fussy. But I'm in the market, so let me know.
Keep an eye out, people. Maybe we need to coordinate this on a separate thread on the Hello Internet subreddit or something. We'll see if we can try and crowdsource this for you in an organized fashion.
I would love that if we had like just a little subreddit for helping Brady find his woodworking bench.
I didn't realize you immediately are jumping to a dedicated subreddit because this is going to happen frequently.
Oh, no. Not a dedicated subreddit, just a thread.
All right, I'll put a thread in the show notes for people to try to organize this for you, Brady. I really want this to happen.
World's most interesting podcast. So, Gray, we're approaching Christmas.
We are approaching Christmas rapidly.
I have a couple of Christmas-related items. Something I've complained about before. It's becoming an increasingly common complaint in the world at large, but it has just reached ridiculous proportions now. And that is some of the packaging being used by Amazon for receiving products. I'm talking oversized packaging here.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I had to buy 2 rolls of brown paper, sort of the butcher's type paper I use in number file videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like a roll of wrapping paper, basically, that size.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
2 rolls. Put my order in. A couple of days later, for whatever reason, the person who was supplying it only had 1 roll available, and I had to wait a week for the second one. So only 1 arrived. And I am not kidding. The box it arrived in was the size of a human coffin. I could have fit inside this box. And I opened it up and it had lots and lots of like stuffing paper in there to stop this 1 small roll of paper from bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
And I took out my 1 little roll of wrapping paper and I had this enormous box that was so big I had to take it to the tip because I couldn't put it anywhere else.
Oh, really?
And then a few days later, I happened to be out when the second roll arrived, and sure enough, it arrives in a second coffin. And the person, because I wasn't there to take it inside, the delivery man or delivery woman had to leave it outside my house by the front fence. And it was raining, so it also got rained on. The stuff was okay in the end. But I had to go to the tip a second time, this time with a huge sopping wet cardboard coffin, and throw that one in the tip as well. And I was at the tip and I was throwing this thing away, and some other guy was throwing something away next to me, and I said, "Look at this, can you believe it? I got sent this huge thing just for a small thing of wrapping paper," which sent him off on a rant about all the things he'd been receiving from Amazon with he received one thing from Amazon that had stuffing paper in there as well for protection, and he measured it, and it had 30 meters of paper in this box, all condensed down to look after whatever was in the box. He was so amazed he measured the paper because he couldn't believe it. This is getting crazy. And I know they're doing it for efficiency reason. And I know, you don't care that much about small things to help the environment when only big things matter. But this is getting ridiculous.
You are assuming things here. And one of these is this is exactly the kind of case where I think it does matter to care, because how many packages does Amazon ship? To my house alone, hundreds a day, as far as I can tell, right? So if you can get Amazon to make their packaging slightly smaller using less materials, I think that's the kind of thing that does have a reasonable impact, and it works at scale. So I assume, you are probably assuming, that Amazon is doing this because on whatever spreadsheets they're using, having a smaller number of different sized boxes to work with is more efficient for them than having exactly the right size box. But I have definitely been super aware of this, of getting boxes that just seem comically missized for the object that is being shipped. And my personal favorite example was just a couple months ago, I bought like a USB thumb drive that I needed to transfer some files back and forth. So a thing that was literally the size of my thumb came in a box that was the size of a shoebox. But don't just write off like, oh, I don't care about the environment and small changes. Like, this is exactly the kind of thing that I think does matter in trying to pressure a company like Amazon into using more efficient material, because they must ship a bazillion boxes absolutely everywhere.
The only thing that's given me a small amount of sympathy for them, which has happened in the last week or two as Project Revolution has started ramping up, is I can see why you would want to overprotect items. Because dealing with every email and everything about some minor bit of damage to a Project Revolution has become difficult and time-consuming. And I completely understand it. I'm not complaining, because if, that's how it is. And for every person, that one record is very important to them. And if it's not right, it's not right. So I'm not complaining about the people, but it does make me realize that it's difficult. And like, no matter what you do or how well you package something, things happen. And then it becomes difficult. So I have got a little bit of sympathy for overprotecting items, but you do not need a coffin for a roll of paper or a shoebox for a thumb drive.
You're learning that being a one-man logistics distributor is actually quite difficult. That's what you're learning over there?
Yeah. And I do feel like that, despite having a logistics company that's supposed to be doing the work for me.
Customer support is always quite a lot of it whenever you do anything.
Anyway, we're getting there. People have been sending loads of photos of them with their records, and that's really been exciting me. So keep them coming. And I hope you're all enjoying the vinyl edition, those of you who are partaking. Let's stay on Christmas, though, because I have another Christmas story. I'm really curious as to what you're going to think about this. From a moral standpoint, or a rightness or wrongness.
Okay.
But it is a bit of fun. Neither you or I have human children. I have doggy children, but we don't have human children.
That's a fantastic way to phrase that. That's correct, yes. Neither of us have human children. I agree.
Some of my relatives do, who I've been spending a bit of time with recently. And I was with my nephew recently and his parents. And I was introduced to a piece of technology that they are using to help with behavior control. I'm familiar with all the different modes of behavior control for children. And I'm also quite familiar with Christmas-related ones. I don't know, have you ever heard of the Elf on the Shelf?
I have heard of this, and it just sounds creepy to me, but I've only heard about this in passing. So my understanding of the Elf on the Shelf is that it's a stuffed toy elf that you put on the shelf, and then you tell the child that it's like Santa's spy who's watching you all the time to make sure that you're being good. Is that the basic idea of the Elf on the Shelf?
In a nutshell, yeah, that's it. I don't know if it's stuffed, but it's a toy elf. It comes with a book, and you read the child the book at the start of the Christmas season, which explains the backstory. I don't know what the backstory is. And they give the elf a name. And they're not to touch the elf. They're told if they touch the elf, the world will end or something. So trust me, children are absolutely petrified of touching the elf. And I have heard stories of children calling 911 in fear after they have touched their elf accidentally.
Okay, that sounds a little too effective.
Yeah. But it usually sits in inaccessible places to help with this no touching thing. But every night while the child is asleep, it moves. I think we all know how, but let's not say in case there are any elf believers listening.
Okay, also terrifying. Okay.
So to be like, oh, look, last night the elf moved from the top of the Christmas tree to the kitchen cupboard or something. Jeez. But it is watching them. And so you can use this with little helpful reminders like, oh, you sure you want to break that Christmas ornament when the elf up on, there's watching. So it's very effective. I sometimes have joked, why can't you just use this all year round? But I imagine it would lose its effectiveness, and it only really works when the Christmas presents are imminent and we have a bit of carrot and stick going on. So anyway, that's the Elf on the Shelf. It's been quite a zeitgeisty thing, I think, for a few years now.
That sounds absolutely terrifying the way you describe it. I didn't realize that the elf moves. That sounds like the plot of a horror movie. I would just think like maybe the elf gets closer, right? The worse you're being, right? You wake up in the morning, right? And the elf is right next to your head. Don't touch it, but it's right there. You've been very bad.
Or like you go into a room and there's like 90 of them hanging from bits of string and you've got to get through it like lasers in a bank vault.
Yeah. The elf has brought all of his friends because you've been very naughty, right? They've been seeing what you're doing. Like, oh God, it sounds awful.
Or you have like 10 of them surrounding your TV remote control. Anyway, I quite like it because it's like, you know me, I like books and toys, and it's a bit old-fashioned. It seems like something from another time.
It really does. It seems like a bygone tradition or something. It's surprising that it's a new thing.
But technology's moved on, and last week I was shown a sort of a more modern equivalent. Apparently there's a few of these around. I've just got one of them. This is an app you have on your phone, and I've got one here called Santa Claus. It's the 2016 version of Elf on the Shelf, because what happens is you configure the app, and if you pay money, you can configure it with even more power, but I'm just using the free version here, so I'm using at its most limited. And what happens is this app allows Santa Claus to call your phone in front of your child, and conversations can ensue. Let me give you an example. I'm going to open up my app now.
What is this app called?
It's called Santa Claus. So I've configured the app. I'm now going to schedule a call. You can pre-program various receivers, and I've programmed one for someone called Gray, who is my 5-year-old child.
Oh, okay.
And you can choose a long list of reasons for the Santa to be calling. The reason for this call is going to be a check on behavior, to check if behaving. And then you can tell the app when this mysterious phone call is going to arrive. I'm going to say, let's have it immediately. So say my 5-year-old Gray is being naughty, or I want to modify his behavior.
I feel really uncomfortable right now.
I will sneakily pull out my app. I will configure this call, and let me press the button. And then what happens, in a few seconds, my phone will go black, so it looks like it's inactive, because kids know this stuff. So my phone is about to go black. It's gone black. And here we go. What happens? I've got it on speaker. And a picture of Santa Claus says, incoming call from Santa Claus, with a red or a green phone. I'm going to press green to accept the call. There's a picture of Santa. I've pressed it. There's even a timer, like a phone call would have.
What's your name?
My name's Gray.
Good. I'm lucky to have you on the phone. I've heard from my elves that you're 5 years old. Aren't you?
Yes, I'm 5.
Super. You know, I just wanted to call and make sure that you're still behaving. Remember, I see you when you're sleeping, and I know when you're awake.
Oh, no.
If you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
I'll be good, I promise.
It was jolly nice talking to you.
So
Thank you.
I have to go now. You see,
So anyway, I've just hung up on Santa. It says call ended.
I swear to God, that feels like real life Black Mirror somehow. Like, this feels like something out of a nightmare.
I couldn't decide if it was good or bad. I was talking to my nephew's parents about it because they've been using it. But it's gotten to a point now where they're a bit scared to use it because their little boy, who's a great little boy, he did something naughty the other day, which he rarely does. And the minute he did it, he looked at the phone and with fear, and he thought Santa was about to call because Santa keeps calling whenever he's naughty. He looked at the phone and started trembling. So the parents were like, "Okay, we got to stop this."
I mean, when you first had that thing ring and it started playing the music, okay, this is the first time I've ever heard it, but I thought, man, that would take about one exposure to develop a Pavlovian response, right, to that music, right, of just horror and I'm in trouble. In the same way that, you should never set a sound or a tune that you like as your alarm clock in the morning because you will grow to loathe that song. That thing makes it feel like Santa Claus is terrifying. And the whole he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake thing, obviously that's creepy if you think about it, but something about the way that app says it, where it's Santa directly addressing you, that I watch you while you're asleep.
It's so cunning too. It looks just like a phone call. It's got the green and the red icons. It's got a counter when the phone call starts, like a timer, and a little icon for Santa so you can see the person who's calling. It's devious.
Yeah, I find that scary and terrifying. I can see how this stuff is useful for parents, but something about it makes me uneasy in a way that I can't quite define.
If you are willing to pay, there's all sorts of things you can build into it. You can take a picture of your house And then when you're having conversations with Santa, a picture of your house will come up. And if you haven't got a chimney, he'll explain how he can get into your house without a chimney. And so the whole charade, dare I say it, is really, really elaborate. It's really full on.
Would you use that on a human child, Brady? Would you feel comfortable using that on a human child?
Well, we're about to talk about some things about Santa Claus that young people might not want to hear.
Right. We're going to discuss some Santa secrets, people. Here's your warning.
Ho, ho, ho. So, in that context, how is it different from what we've been doing all our lives with Santa Claus? Like, we've been doing this for years anyway. This is just a new tool in the arsenal. We take kids to sit on Santa's lap and tell them that's Santa. And he sits there and says, what do you want for Christmas? And I'm going to bring you stuff for Christmas. So to look at this app and say, that's outrageous. How can we be deceiving children like this? Like, we do it already.
I'm not saying that it's outrageous. I'm just saying that it feels like a weaponized version of the traditional story. Like the regular thing is just fine, but this is tuned so precisely that it becomes different in kind rather than just different in amount. That's what it feels like, right? It's weaponized Santa, right? It's like precision targeted to press all of the buttons of a child. And that's what makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, as opposed to, oh, there's this folktale that we tell that happens to be useful around the holidays, but we haven't like refined it into this precise thing. I think that's why I feel a little bit weird and uncomfortable with that.
Have I ever told you my story about learning the truth about Santa?
I don't think so. Tell me, Brady.
So, my parents were always quite big on me knowing the truth of life quite early. They treated me quite grown up. So I was told the shocking truth about Santa Claus quite early. And I was told at the same time as my poor sister, who was 18 months younger. So she had 18 months less magic than me. And I was very specifically told not to tell my other friends because they still believed in Santa. And it was explained to me like the utility of Santa and why the others must be allowed to believe.
Right.
So sure enough, the next day I went to school, and you know what the first thing I did was?
Right.
I called together all the lads and said, guys, I've got some big news.
Right. This is day one of investigative journalist Brady breaking the story.
So I broke the story to like all the boys in my class, 10, 15 of them. But the problem was the most popular boy in school, like, you know, the cock of the rooster, whatever you want to call him, a guy called Simon, he didn't believe me. He was a big Santa believer. So he told all the other boys in the class, guys, Brady's talking rubbish. And I was basically ostracized for the day. I was a pariah.
Right.
Because Simon had decided Brady was telling mistruths about Santa Claus. So I was frozen out. Well, obviously that night, Simon went home and told his parents and said, look, Brady at school has been saying this stuff. But he obviously said to his parents, but don't worry, I've taken care of it. And his parents obviously felt sorry for me. So they secretly told Simon and Simon alone, look, Brady was telling the truth. And Simon got the same talk that night about, you know, the shocking truth. So it was so funny. The next day, like at recess, Simon like convened all the boys in the class and we all sort of stood in a circle and he was like, guys, I've got some big news. Brady was telling the truth. And like then everyone believed because Simon told them that Santa wasn't real. So for a day, Santa like cost me, my social status. But then the next day I was like redeemed.
Right, but you got another source on the record, right? That's what made it all the more believable.
I should have done that in the first place. I should have had two sources to start with. That was my mistake. But anyway, I learnt from that. What was your Santa experience as a youngster?
I don't have a particular memory of figuring out the truth. What I do remember is that there was a period of suspicion that I had as a child where I was like, I'm not sure this Santa story is holding together, right? And my parents cleverly delayed it for maybe 1 or 2 Christmases by modifying the story slightly by saying, oh yes, obviously some of the presents are from us and some of them are from Santa. And whatever age I was like, oh, that explains some of these inconsistencies, right? I just kind of went along with it for a little while longer. But I know some people have traumatic discovery of a terrible truth about Santa. I have no memory of when this occurred or how the details happened. I don't remember at all when I found out the truth.
I'd love people to put in the Reddit notes for this show how they found out about Santa, because I'd be really interested to find that out. It was a shock to me and my sister, I remember that, because it was done while decorating the Christmas tree of all times. My mum was decorating the Christmas tree and called us in to tell us, so it kind of had this like quite evil aspect to it. there was a few seconds of like stunned silence and like processing the information. I think the first question was, where did the presents come from, of course, and that was explained. And then it was, what about the Easter Bunny? And like, so the Easter Bunny died that day too.
Right. We've got some sad news for you about him.
Yeah, and then there was like just more like desolation for like a minute or so, and then it's the Tooth Fairy? Same. All these people just all like came crashing down at once.
It's a weird moral dilemma about what to do with children and Santa Claus. Like, if I had human children, I'm not sure how I would handle that situation with Santa, because obviously some people grow up and feel super betrayed over this in ways that, like, as an adult, they still kind of feel quite strongly about. But I can never quite figure out, is this a good thing that we do as a society, or is it not a good thing that we do as a society overall? Is it a good lesson for children to learn? Like, oh, the adult world, not only will it lie to you, but there will be like a vast conspiracy to keep the truth away from you, like in a way that you could not possibly believe as a child. Like, maybe that's a good lesson for people to learn. I don't know. Like, is that the lesson Santa teaches us all? I don't think that's the lesson that people take away from Santa. I think they take away a lesson of personal disappointment. So I have very mixed feelings on the cultural institution of Santa as it relates to children. What do you think, Brady?
I love it. I love it.
I love Santa. Like, I love Christmas. I love the idea, the decorations, this like idea of Santa. I'm a little bit more ambiguous about the enormous conspiracy around Santa as he relates to children.
It all just gives us, it gives the kids pleasure. It gives us adults pleasure as we wink at each other and tell the stories.
Yeah. Sort of related to something you said earlier, though, which I find a strange development in Santa Claus. Is you said how we bring kids to see Santa and have him sit on Santa's lap. I have noticed with the friends that I have who have children who are in the Santa age range that all of the mall Santas, the rule is now that you are not allowed to sit on Santa's lap. And so they all have pictures of their child sitting next to Santa Claus instead of sitting on his lap.
Shaking his hand.
Yeah. I assume that it's part of this like bizarre paranoia that the UK has over pedophiles. Like, oh, a mall Santa, right, might be a dangerous situation. I was like, I can't imagine a less dangerous situation than a mall Santa. But the thing that bothers me about it is it's like, okay, the character of Santa Claus is someone who loves kids, right? And so it's like obvious, like you sit the kid on someone's lap. When you turn the photograph into a child sitting next to Santa, now suddenly it looks really weird, right? Now suddenly it looks like maybe there's something going on with that Santa, right? So it's like everything was fine before, and then in your weird effort to be like, oh, we have to worry about pedophiles. Like, you make the world look like it's more dangerous when children can't even sit on a Santa's lap. So I have been annoyed by a series of photos that I have seen like this, where the parents are saying, oh, you're not allowed to have the child sit on Santa's lap. We have to sit the child next to Santa. And with like a pretty big gap in between. It's just weird. It's really weird. And I don't like it. And I think it's one of these cases where the world has gone super paranoid.
I agree. And I'm sure Gray agrees. Child protection is a serious issue. And there have been a couple of stories in the last few weeks in the UK that have exacerbated the situation. None involving Santa Claus, I hasten to add. But I think the child protection thing can go a little bit far. And you're right, it suddenly makes it an issue. It tars the Santa with the allegation. Yeah, exactly. It totally does. It's a case of trying to make a thing better, but like, you've made it worse. You've made Santa look so much more suspicious. Hello, Internet listeners. I know some of you right now are finding it just impossible to get the right gift for some of the guys that you know, for some of the men in your life. I know every year that rolls around with the holidays, my wife curses how incredibly difficult it is to get me a gift. You're looking for something that's thoughtful, but you're also looking for something that's practical. So here is Harry's.com, solving your gift-giving problems. Harry's is a company that was started by two best friends, Jeff and Andy, who were fed up with being overcharged for razors, so they started their own razor company to give people what they deserve, a great shave at a fair price. And for this holiday, Harry's has ready-to-give shave sets all set at different price points, starting at just $15. They all come with a razor handle of your choice, shaving cream, replacement blades, and a travel cover.
And going back to wanting to have a thoughtful gift, their Winston set includes an engravable chrome handle if you want to add that personalized touch. As a special offer for the Hello Internet audience, we've partnered with Harry's to give you $5 off your order when you enter code HI at checkout. I've received these Harry's gift sets in person, and they are just fantastic looking. They're a really nice gift to give someone. I love how all of the razors have a just really solid quality feel to them, and the packaging is just so nice. There's a lot of little details with the way they wrap up their razor blades that just make it feel like you're getting an old-fashioned yet modern shaving kit. They're really just great looking. So if you're having a hard time finding a gift for someone, consider the Harry's shaving kit. There's still time if you act quickly. So if that's you, if you're looking to get a gift, go to harrys.com right now to get a holiday shave set and enter the code HI at checkout for $5 off. That's harrys.com, code HI. Thanks to Harry's for supporting the show.
So I had a couple of funny little stories, and it's more braggy than humble. So I am going to brag a bit, but there is also some humbling in it. I was trying to think what to call it in our new naming system, and I think it's like a humble brag humble.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of components to it.
You're going very German with the humble brag now. You're building up a unique word to have the exact ratios of how much humble versus how much brag is in the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my sister, who lives in Singapore, was out the other day for her anniversary at dinner. And her husband got talking to a couple next to them. And they got talking about mathematics. One of the people next to them was really into mathematics. And I think my brother-in-law then said, oh, my brother-in-law is a guy in England and he makes videos about mathematics. And then suddenly this guy looks at my sister and says, are you Brady Haran's sister? And she was like, yeah. And like he was so excited, and then all the family was called over, and like my sister had to pose for photos with them at her anniversary dinner. She had to pose for photos with the guy sitting at the table next to them because like she was the sister of like someone who makes number file videos. So this was a funny story, and as you know, I enjoy any chance I have to lord it over my sister, and she like hated it. So I've been giving her a hard time.
Right, that makes it 10 times better, right?
Exactly. So not only do I feel like, oh, I'm Mr. Big Famous number file guy who makes the videos, even my sister has to like pose for photos.
Right, it's like, great, somebody else rubbed it in my sister's face. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That was all well and good. And a couple of days later, remember that's this Kelvin medal from the Institute of Physics, that 60 symbols one? We had the award ceremony for that the other day. So we all dressed up in our penguin suits and went to this award ceremony, and it was really good. And again, we were feeling like the big superstars because we were getting our prize. And before the award ceremony starts, I'm told by one of the organisers, I see those two young people over there. They're like young, gifted physics students, and they're going to be presenting your award because they're presenting some awards. It's kind of, it's like an initiative to get young, talented students engaged with professional physics and a treat for them. And it's a nice idea, isn't it, having school students present the awards. And the guy says to me, and I think, it's a bit of a daunting experience for them with all these old physicists around. I think they'd get a real thrill out of getting to like meet you and have a chat with you because, you're the YouTube star person.
You're the celebrity.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, of course, I'd be really happy to talk to them. It'd be really great. What a great idea. So I went over and spoke to them, and I was talking to one of the guys, and I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Brady. And it was explained to him that I was getting an award. And he was like, oh, that's really nice. I'm like, yeah, I make these videos. We're getting this award for 60 Symbols. And someone there said, oh, do you watch 60 Symbols? And he's like, blank, never heard of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's brought me down a peg. And I'm like, so I'm trying to make conversation with this guy who doesn't know me from Adam, and I'm just another boring old person to him. So I said to him, oh, do you watch YouTube videos, like science YouTube videos? And he's like, oh, yeah, I really love them. And I'm like, oh, tell me some of the ones you watch. And I was hoping he'd like say like number file or periodic videos or something. And then I could go, yeah, hey, guess who I am? So he starts listing off the ones he likes. Nothing I make gets a mention. I'll tell you that right now. But the one he mentions first that he absolutely loves is Veritasium. I love Veritasium videos. They're my favorite. So after what happened to my sister, I'm now forced to resort to fame by association. And I'm like, oh, I know Derek. Like, I'm a hanger-on. And then he's like, oh, and I really like Vsauce. And I'm like, oh, I know Michael too. But like, he's so excited that I know Derek. So I send Derek a text. He's in California, and I say, oh, I'm at some award ceremony trying to impress some kid who doesn't know me.
Oh my god, Brady.
Well, I'm trying to, because it had been my job to make his night. Like, I'd been told he'd get a thrill from speaking to me, and he didn't give two hoots about me.
I feel like you really just crossed a line here, right? It's like, okay, this is sort of a funny story about how someone doesn't know who you are, and there can be these really weird, awkward social situations where if you make your living in a public way, and like someone introduces you in a way where they expect someone to know who you are. Like I've been in some of those situations, and I hate it when someone introduces me like as this person they expect someone else to know. And it's like, please never do that. There's no upside to it. It can be super awkward. So it's like, I have so much sympathy for you in this situation.
And the odds are so small because like our audiences are really so small in the scheme of things. The chances of someone knowing us are minute.
Yeah, it's this very interesting thing with YouTube fame where it's like, it can be large, but it's so narrow at the same time. It's not generalized fame like celebrity. So yeah, I go out of my way to avoid those situations. And so I'm listening to this story. I'm totally with you. I'm all on board, except for now, right? When you cross the line and you message Derek and you're like, you're talking to this guy.
I didn't do this in front of the guy. Mm-hmm. But, because I text Derek occasionally. We share photos. So we're like, this is something we would do anyway. Mm-hmm. So I basically said, I'm at this award ceremony and funny thing happened and the guy is a massive fan of yours and doesn't know me from Adam and I'm supposed to be, the star of the night. So then I say to Derek, I told Derek the guy's name and said, can you do me a favour? And what a great guy Derek is. Like, what a great guy he is. Mm-hmm. He, on the spot, on like a sidewalk in California, sent me a video of a personal message to this guy. And like, he also did it so well. He made it really like charming. He said, hey, he said the guy's name. I hear you're at the award ceremony and I hope you have a really great night. And I'm glad you got to meet Brady and I'm glad you like Veritasium. Really classy, like, 20-second message. So then I texted it off to this guy. And oh my God, did that make his night? He was so excited. Mm-hmm. I felt like about 1 foot tall, but I still delivered the goods and made his night, thanks to our good friend, Dirk from Veritasium. So it started all very braggy, and by the end of it all, I was pretty humbled. That is humbled in the proper use of the term.
Right. Feeling lower than you are, as opposed to the way people seem to use it when they have achieved massive success and then say they feel humble.
So when I did receive my award, I didn't make a speech or anything, but I could have said I'm truly humbled tonight and I would have been telling the truth.
I will warn you in advance, Brady, just in case you needed it, that if you're ever in a situation where someone knows who I am, but doesn't know who you are, don't expect me to send a charming video message to the person so that you can impress them.
Yeah. Do you think I'd ask?
I don't know. I don't know how much pressure you'd be under to deliver the goods of making sure that this person knows that you know a person.
On the other hand, if it was like Destin would probably make them a 5-foot paper mache sculpture or something.
If it was Destin, he'd be landing in a helicopter in 20 minutes.
So, Gray, bi-weekly weigh-in? How you doing?
Wow, this feels really out of the blue. What makes you bring up the bi-weekly weigh-in, Brady?
You told me that if you love something, you let it go, and if it's truly yours, it comes back to you. I've come back to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like has it been a year? I have no idea how long it's been. It feels like it's been a long time.
I'm having another run at it.
Just to be clear, I'm really happy about this. I just assumed I'd never be hearing these words ever again, but it seems like right before Christmas might be the worst time in the world to start up a health kick. So tell me, what's going on? What's going on?
I don't know. Just something happened. Something flicked in my mind. And I've said, I haven't sorted my food out yet.
Okay.
That is a switch I'm yet to flick. And we actually had to do our Christmassy stuff with family early because my wife and I are working over Christmas. So we've done some really bad eating the last week or two. But what I have done is rejoined a gym I quite like nearby, and I've started very regular personal training sessions.
Oh, interesting. So you're working with a personal trainer?
I am. When possible, which is not always possible. Best case scenario, 3 days a week.
Wow, that's fantastic. How are you finding it?
I have done personal training before. When it comes to exercise, it's the way to go for me because I'm quite a proud person. I'm not willing to fail in front of someone, even if it's just one person. So if the personal trainer says, all right, I want you to do 10 of them and then 5 of them, I'm going to be hard as nails and say, well, all right, I'm not going to let you see me not be able to do it. So basically, he knows I'm unfit. And he says, let's start with this and see if you can do it. And every time I do something, he's like, oh, wow, I'm surprised you did that. Let's up the ante. He's not realizing that I'm dying inside, but I'm just like pushing myself to the limits of human endurance so that I won't not be able to do something he asked me to do. He could probably say, go and lift up that car, and I'd do it just out of sheer stubbornness.
Great. That seems like a good way to handle your personal health. Okay.
I've got to sort my food out because it's all for naught if at the moment, I'm just robbing Peter to pay Paul. But it's a start, and I've done 5 sessions so far, and I'm gonna try and stick with it. Even stopping now would be a cause of great personal shame. The only time, the reason I left my previous personal trainer was because I left the city. I moved away from Nottingham, so I can't imagine stopping with a personal trainer. So the only thing that's going to cause this to stop is me moving house, so I can no longer see him. Or the most likely scenario is him changing jobs or not being a personal trainer anymore. But until then, I can't really see what will stop me.
Wow. This is fantastic news. I feel like I'm just totally unprepared for this. I didn't know this was going to happen. Do you want to restart like regular conversations around this? Like, do you want to do the weigh in with numbers again? Or what are you thinking? What's going on with your mind here?
No, I'm not thinking that. I'm just letting you know I'm back on the horse. And you'll know how well it's going by how often I bring it up.
Okay. See, that's what I was kind of thinking. Okay, so you're not committing to any kind of structured schedule here.
Well, I don't see a point now because you got where you wanted to be and you've got the body beautiful and you're living the dream now. And so there's no real comparison to be made. I'm just flying solo now.
I achieved the weight that I wanted to, which is under 200 pounds. But I think to say that I have the body beautiful now, it's not exactly an accurate description. Like, I could definitely do a lot more. And for various reasons, in particular, over the last several weeks, like, I have been very off the wagon as far as it comes to health. And then when Christmas is rolling around, I feel like, goodbye, wagon. I'll catch you in January, right? Like, I'm not going to make any kind of pretending. So I am by no means on any kind of health kick. But I'll just put it out there. Like, if you wanted to ever do anything more structural, more formal, like, I've got plenty of progress to still make, even though I achieved my first goal. So that would be something I'd be very open to.
Baby steps, Gray. Baby steps.
I'm not going to pressure you. That's right. I'm going to let this bird go, fly back out, and maybe we'll check in another year and we'll find out how that personal training has been going.
All right.
You know, at least in my own very limited experience with personal training, like, I found it shockingly effective in many ways that I wouldn't have expected, because of that same phenomenon that when you're with somebody else, they can push you much harder than you would naturally push yourself, because there is that pressure of like, well, I don't want to look like a wimp. So yeah, I'm very happy, Brady.
Why have you got only limited experience with personal training? Why don't you use a personal trainer all the time?
Okay, this is going to be a very gray answer probably, but I did personal training for about 6 weeks before this summer when I was going to do a bunch of traveling. I was doing it basically because I was getting to the point where I was concerned that I could injure myself with the weights that I was lifting. And so I wanted to work with someone to make sure that I was doing it not in a dumb way. I couldn't just be doing it on my own anymore at that point. So I was kind of intending to work with someone just for a limited period of time to make sure that I was doing things right. But more than that, I found it absolutely mentally exhausting to have like a 3 days a week kind of hour-long meeting with another person early in the morning. This does not work for me. Like, my ideal morning is I get up and I don't talk to anyone until I've done all of my work and exercise, and now it's like 12 or 1 in the afternoon. That's my absolute ideal morning. And so to have like a morning meeting with someone all the time, I just found it really mentally draining. And I was also aware that it actually did have like an impact on my work, being aware that like, oh, I have to be at the gym at this exact time.
Yes, I find that.
Like, there's this lie that people say, which is that they're always like, oh, when you exercise, it doesn't take that much time and it adds so much time to your life. And it's like, I have never found that to be the case. Like, exercise does take a lot of time. And I think it's better if you just mentally accept that. Like, this is going to take a big chunk out of your day.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, accept the fact it's going to take a big chunk out of your day.
Yeah.
But I found that by having the regular meeting with the trainer, it was impacting it even more. Like, it was taking more of a chunk. And then I just find it exhausting to try to talk to someone at 10:30 in the morning. And especially like constant small chit chat. Like, I find that the most draining thing ever. So I did it for a limited run. I might do it again in the future for limited runs, but I think I would probably rather kill myself than do indefinite ongoing personal training. I couldn't possibly deal with that.
But it does bring me to the other thing I wanted to talk about going to the gym. I just don't imagine you do this, actually, because even I find it socially awkward. The changing rooms. Do you go into gym changing rooms?
Yeah? Where are you going with this? What's awkward in a changing room?
I don't know, just some people have more of an exhibitionist streak than others. And I sometimes find I don't really know what to do with myself.
What you do is you keep eyes above waist level, Brady, right? That's rule number one.
Yeah, okay,
right?
yeah.
Eyes up, right?
Eyes up.
If eyes are up, all other problems are solved. I don't see what the issue is.
And you're quite comfortable with that. You're quite comfortable with all these nude people around you and you're nuding up yourself.
yes, we're all just nuding it up together in the changing room.
I just thought you're the last person in the world that would be comfortable with that.
I mean, I'm totally fine with the changing rooms because it's like the social rules in this environment. We're all here at the gym together. We're all using shared facilities. This is just the way it is. I don't see what there is to be uncomfortable about this. It's just like, oh, this is just a changing room. We segregated by gender, right, for social politeness reasons. And here we are. We're in the changing room. I'm actually surprised that you're not the guy who's chatting people up in the changing room. I figured you'd be your normal chatty self in the changing room, but it feels like maybe you're the guy looking down embarrassed all the time. I'm surprised by this.
I wouldn't say I'm looking down embarrassed all the time. I'm more just shocked that you're cool with it.
I don't know. It just seems like these are the rules here.
All right. Yeah.
What else are we going to do? We all have to use the showers. We all have to change our clothes. As long as you follow the rule, eyes up.
Okay. I just assumed you would be someone who would just go home sweaty and get changed at home or build some kind of towel tent.
Like a portable tent? Yeah, a portable tent to bring with me.
You don't even let people see your face.
This is a totally different context. You're mixing contexts here, Brady. One is not applicable to the other.
All right. Enough locker room banter.
Enough locker room banter. But I'm very happy for you, Brady. This episode is brought to you in part by my favorite place to get audiobooks, the only place I get audiobooks, Audible.com. With an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows now, news, comedy, and more, you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial at audible.com/hellointernet. That's audible.com/hellointernet, all one word. The book that I'm currently listening to on Audible is what I think is a perfect example of why I like to use Audible for audiobooks so much. That book is called Cod by Mark Kurlansky, a biography of the fish that changed the world. And yes, it is actually a book that is entirely about cod. How cod influenced the ability of transatlantic voyages because of how easy it was to store and how long it lasted, and then onward to its effect on the famous triangle trade routes. It's very interesting to listen to, but I am absolutely sure that if I ever had to sit down and say, I'm going to read a book about cod, that would never happen. But this is why I like audiobooks and why I like Audible. I can pick a book on a topic like this, and when I'm walking to and from the office, when I'm just doing errands, and particularly around the holiday season, there are very many errands to run, I can just listen to a book about a topic and be informed, and I really like it. I listen to a ton of nonfiction audiobooks of this kind, and I'm currently listening to Cod and quite liking it. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're the kind of person who would also enjoy listening to audiobooks, and you should really give Audible a try. They have just such an incredibly large catalog. There is always going to be something for you to listen to. So if you go to audible.com/hellointernet to get your free 30-day trial, you can give Cod a listen, or you can try that author's other book called Salt, or you can find any book on any topic in their enormous catalog that is of interest to you. Really, give it a try when you're doing some errands, when you're walking around, when you're commuting. Audiobooks really add a lot to my quality of life, and I think they will to yours as well. So once again, please go to audible.com, that's audible.com/hellointernet to get your free audiobook with a 30-day trial. Thanks again to Audible for supporting the show and for making my walking around time much more informative and interesting.
You know we love the elements here. You know I love the elements. And I feel like you have a soft spot for the periodic table too.
Of course.
Those 4 new elements,
Oh, God.
Nihonium, Moscovium, Tennessine, and Oganesson, have now gone through the consultation process. They've been signed and sealed and stamped and authorized, and they're now on the periodic table for all time. I thought we should mark that.
Oh, yeah.
And I marked it with a bit of an experiment. As you know, I've made videos about every single element for periodic videos. So obviously we had 4 new videos to make now that these elements are official, just so that the collection is intact.
Of course.
So we made the 4 new ones the other day. And tell me what you think of this. Because all 4 were approved and authorized at once, they kind of did them as a batch through the process. I decided, for fun more than anything, to release all 4 videos at once, simultaneously.
Okay. So you did 4 separate videos launch at the same time.
4 separate videos, put them all out at the exact same time. So 1 o'clock yesterday or the day before, bang, press the button. 4 new videos from periodic videos all at once, treating each one individually, like standalone, so they can sit on the website alone and that sort of stuff. Do you think that was a good idea? Do you think that was a terrible idea? What do you think about that?
I presume that you're asking from the perspective of maximizing views. Is that what you're thinking?
That is one of the factors. Obviously, it is not a good idea for maximizing views. I was aware of that. Like, that was a sacrifice. There were pros and cons to doing it, and I'm wondering if you think it was a stupid thing to have done, or it appeals to your brain, or you think I was being silly.
If I was running periodic videos, I think I would not have released them all at once. I don't think it's a terribly silly thing to do, but it just seems like so much of our careers is dependent on the YouTube algorithm and what the YouTube algorithm wants to promote and wants to show people. And I can't imagine that releasing 4 videos at once is the kind of thing that the people who are designing that algorithm would expect a channel to do, and so would thus factor in correctly to how it should be handled. So I don't know what your view numbers were like on those videos at all, but my feeling is if I had multiple videos to release, I wouldn't release them all simultaneously. Now, every once in a while, I have released multiple videos on a single day, usually where I have a video and then there's like a little footnote that I want to include with the video that's not a main thing. And if I do that, I'll at very least try to put a lot of time between them. So like one will go up in the morning and then one will go up later in the afternoon. Because I just feel like at the same time, I'm not sure that the algorithm would like that. And we all have to serve the algorithm, Brady. That's my feeling on this.
I didn't feel that way about this. I didn't feel... Well, obviously, I didn't feel I should be serving the algorithm because I did it, and I knew the algorithm wouldn't like it. But there were lots of factors that came into it, and everything you say there is true, but I guess I felt, and also I am, a bit less beholden to view counts than you are because of the way my business works.
Right, yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. A few interesting things fell out of it. I mean, my biggest concern was alienating people and people feeling clogged, like, because I don't even know how people get their alerts anymore. Would they get 4 emails? Would their subscription box or list be full of my stuff and it would piss them off because they're like, oh God, 4 videos in a row from the same mob, unsubscribe. So that was a concern. Spreading them out though, like over the course of a week, also felt like a concern because the videos do have a certain sameness to them for obvious reasons. So it could be like, oh, you did this last week. Oh, you did this the week before. And it would almost give people more time to unsubscribe. Like they could take the hit once. They'd forgive it once. But after 4 weeks in a row, they'd be like, okay, now you're just taking the piss. I'm unsubscribing.
Right. Is there getting a Pavlovian response to your element uploads? Like, oh no, here comes another one.
Or ripping off the Band-Aid. If you've got to put these 4 videos out that have got similar elements to them because they're all super heavy elements synthesized in similar ways.
Right.
Let's get it all out the way at once. But I also just liked the idea of it being like a bit of an event and a bit of a surprise and unexpected, like people going, whoa, when I woke up this morning, I never thought there'd be 4 new videos from this one channel. And I think for some people, it was a bit of like an event. I was also really interested to see how the 4 would compare on their views. Like it was a nice test, wasn't it, of 4 videos that are all very similar, which one would people click on? Which element name appealed to them? One of them did a lot worse than the others, and I wonder if that was algorithmic, like whether or not 4 videos is one too many, and like one was below some fold or not on some email or something. But
I feel like my guess is you're releasing them all at the same time, but YouTube has some concept of the upload time versus the release time. My guess would be like the first one and the last one would do better than the 2 in the middle. I don't really have any reason for that, but that's just kind of my gut guess for what I would expect.
no. In terms of when I actually uploaded them, because obviously I couldn't upload them all at the same time, the first 2 I uploaded did the best. The third's done the worst. Who knows? Who knows? I haven't done the analysis well enough. I'm sure there's something interesting in there somewhere. And subscribers did dip. It did hurt subscribers. At one point, the professor in the videos contacted me and said, I think subscribers have actually dropped. In the scheme of things, I think it was still up for the day net, but it was a dip.
But it caused a visible dip when you released all of them. People were like, too much periodic videos. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But in some ways, I don't mind that, because if you're subscribing to a channel that is made its name by making videos about all the elements, and them releasing 4 element videos in a day puts you off, then you're probably not the best subscribers for us to have. And if, like Facebook, having like too many followers that aren't true believers can dilute you and hurt you algorithmically, then maybe sometimes it's good to get rid of the chaff.
Yeah, I mean, this gets to, the thing about we just have no real idea how YouTube is handling these things behind the scenes. And talking about the subscriber numbers, I mean, we've mentioned it, many times when YouTube Red conversation has come up and with other things, but I just personally don't really put a lot of stock in that subscriber number anymore. Like, I'm not even really sure what it means.
No.
Especially with this change that YouTube has made where there's a way essentially now where you have to double subscribe, where like you can subscribe to the channel, but then you're also supposed to press the little bell next to the subscribe button, which says that you actually want to get notifications about when this channel puts out new videos. It's an interesting thing that YouTube is still kind of built around this idea of rewarding people for subscribers. Obviously, like with all of the silver play buttons that you have littered around your house, they're built around this idea, but algorithmically, I think the evidence just keeps piling up that the subscriber things don't matter. So
I agree.
When you put out 4 videos, this is the kind of data YouTube won't give us, but I would just love to know, how did YouTube handle telling your audience that these 4 videos exist? It doesn't make any sense when you have these subscriber numbers and then you look at video view numbers and they're just all over the place.
Yeah. So without cheating or looking at your screen, Gray, shut your eyes. Mm-hmm. Your eyes shut?
My eyes are shut.
I told you those 4 new element names. How many of them do you remember?
Oh, gosh. Tennessine, Oganesson, Nipponium. Oh, I failed. I'm sorry. I could not get the last one.
It was Moscovium.
Oh, Moscovium.
And it's not Nipponium, it's Nihonium with an H, because both Nippon and Nihon can be words for Japan, I think, and they've gone Nihonium.
I'm going to count that. I think that's close enough.
All right.
Yeah? Do you think I'd get that on Jeopardy?
Definitely not.
What is Nipponium? I think they'd give that to me.
They definitely would not.
100%. Speaking of YouTube stuff, we discussed these new ad formats, or at least new to us ad formats that were popping up, which is the sponsored item ads. I was looking at a video that was describing how to build a secret cabinet in your house, and underneath the YouTube video were a bunch of ugly ads about how to buy a secret cabinet on YouTube instead. It's like when you buy a new car and suddenly you look around the world and it seems like this car is absolutely everywhere. I don't know if it's just like I just tuned into this thing and now I see it absolutely everywhere, but I have now seen these ads on my own videos where YouTube is trying to guess a product that is related to my videos and have a huge amount of space underneath the video directly related to trying to sell people that physical item. My favorite example of this is my video on the rules for rulers, which is constantly trying to sell people rulers, right? Actual rulers you would use to measure the length of objects. If you go watch that video, underneath it, it's trying to sell you rulers for like 99 cents, 50 cents to buy a cheapo plastic ruler. We've discussed it before that YouTube has this, it doesn't look like the prettiest website, but I've got to say, like, to load up my video and to see a bunch of junky plastic rulers for sale below the video directly while the video plays, and it also has a little pop-up that occurs part of the way through the video on the top of the screen that says, click here to open up the slide over to buy some rulers. It's so awful. Like, it's just an awful, ugly ad format. I was looking through the YouTube analytics data, and again, it's always a little bit unclear precisely what we can tell the audience, but you can see how much the different types of ads will earn for your channel. And those pre-roll videos, right, they pay the most, and other different kinds of ads pay the least. And I can't even find where these paid object ads are supposed to exist. So I've been seriously considering going through my videos and trying to make sure to disable this kind of ad across all of my videos, because I think that the sheer ugliness of it is just not worth it. Like, it just crosses a real line for me of how hideous these things are. And if they're not even earning any money, I would rather just not have my own audience see them and be just distracted by the hideousness of them.
What are they called? Maybe some of my channels aren't enabled for them, but just looking at one of my channels, I can't even see what they're called to disable them, so maybe I don't get them.
In the YouTube backend, they're called sponsored cards.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This is the ad type that exists. What I think is really devious about this is the sponsored card description seems to be that it's just going to be an ad on the side, but as best I can tell, that sponsored card means that a YouTube video will have that little slide over come out from the top like you've put in a card, except the person can click it to buy a thing, and also below the video, it will display these big images to buy whatever on eBay that's related to the actual video itself.
That's certainly not clear from that name, because I didn't even know that's what that was.
It's not clear from that name at all. And here's the thing that I am wondering. YouTube is doing this move where they're clearly no longer interested in annotations. So it used to be on YouTube that you could draw a little box on the screen and people could click on that box and it would take them to another video or another website. And we've complained mightily before about how annotations are really difficult to actually draw correctly on the screen. The interface for them is pretty terrible. But the advantage that they have is that the annotation click-through is really high. Like in my videos, if I put a little box on the screen and I say something like click here, or even if I don't, people know to click those boxes to go see another video or to go see another thing.
Because you've got control over what's in the box, so it can be something visually interesting or relevant or...
Right, that's exactly it, right? You can put an image on the screen, or you can just say, click on my face and draw a box around your face. And YouTube has introduced these cards, which when they first came out, I know we discussed it, but these cards, which are just a little slide over that appears on the top, while they work on desktop and mobile, at least in my own experimenting, they have horrific click-through rates, like a tenth the number of click-throughs as compared to an annotation.
That's a real shame too, Gray, because to be totally honest, they're much nicer. They're classy, they're quite elegant, they work well. Like, I actually visually like them more. They quite appeal to me, but they just don't work.
Yeah, the annotations can look kind of junky, partly because it's hard to draw them, partly because the colors aren't really great.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't like about cards is how they're a little bit of an interruption in the video because they're motion, because they slide out. I think they're a little bit visually distracting. Yeah. But I'll agree with you that overall, the cards are a win in the looks department, right? But I find myself... even though YouTube is increasingly trying to push us away from annotations, and if you go to add an annotation now, they kind of make you choose between annotations and other features. Like they don't want you to use them. But I find like I still want to use annotations because they're so incredibly effective. And they're doubly effective when you consider that half of the audience is usually watching on a mobile device where the annotations don't even work. They don't even show up, whereas cards show up on both. But thinking about these sponsored cards, what I'm wondering is if one of the reasons that the click-through rates on these cards are so low is because some percentage of them are just ads. And so the people watching YouTube respond to them less because whatever it is, maybe 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 30 times when the thing pops up on the screen, it's not a message from the creator of this video.
Yeah.
It's, why don't you buy a plastic ruler right now? I'm just wondering if this is the reason why cards have such horrific click-through rates as compared to annotations, because sometimes they're ads.
People have been conditioned to treat them as noise and not a message from someone they trust.
Yeah, that is precisely what I'm wondering. If this is like the conflicted message, because as soon as I've realized this, I feel like, boy, I wasn't a big fan of cards in the beginning, and I'm less of a fan of cards now that I know that the message can be mixed for the actual viewer.
I've just clicked through to YouTube's explanation of what all the different types of ads are, because we can't tell just from their name what we're saying is allowed or not allowed on our videos.
Mm-hmm.
I scrolled down to sponsored cards, and from their description, sponsored cards are what I would have thought they are. They're just little messages up the top where that little eye symbol is quite tucked out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in the official description of what sponsored cards are that says anything about big junky ads displayed under your videos, like on permanent display trashing up the screen. So either that's being a sneaky and they haven't included it, or it's not part of the sponsored card description and it's just something that we have no power over and it just goes on whether you want it or not.
I agree with you, right? When I looked into this and I was trying to figure out why are these ugly ruler ads appearing below my video, like I might be wrong about this, but this is the best that I could track it down. And in doing a couple tests of flipping the switch just temporarily to see, it looked like flipping the sponsored card thing was the one that would change the junky ads at the bottom. It does have this feeling of, again, that YouTube does these things and the messaging is just never clear. Like, where are these ads exactly? If you're looking at YouTube's official documents, it doesn't seem like these are anywhere, but they're clearly somewhere in the system. YouTube sure has a lot of different ad formats, and it doesn't contribute to the overall niceness and nice lookingness of the platform.
Puts a few dollars in your pocket though, CGP Grey.
I mean, maybe. It's just suspicious to me because just like you say, these ads don't seem to show up anywhere on the official documents about what kind of ads there are. When I look through the analytics, there is nothing in there that to me looks like, here is the ad revenue that you got when somebody bought a ruler through your video. And so I feel like, what are these things? Like, what are these ugly things? Where is this money going? What's occurring? It's not clear at all. There's no clear message from YouTube about what these things are. It's just a bad viewer experience in the same way that, like, I always hate those little overlay ads that pop up on the bottom third. Like, I find them just so distracting from a video, and that's part of the reason why I disable them on my videos. And I think, like, these sponsored cards are like the same kind of thing again. It diminishes the video that it's on in a way that I personally don't feel pre-roll ads or display ads on the side do. Those feel like they're apart from the video, but this feels like it's just too much in the video itself.
Can't disagree with you, Gray. And you're right. If it turns out that the money from those junky ones underneath aren't going to the creators, then that's going to be an interesting little tale to tell later. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how some people would react to that. I've actually never seen one on my video, so I don't know much about them, but maybe there's something dodgy going on.
Yeah, I personally suspect it's just that the revenue is so small that it's not really showing up on the analytics, but who knows? And again, it's just the message is always that it is unclear from the perspective of what is YouTube up to.
What is YouTube up to? That could be like on your gravestone. So here lies CGP Grey. What was YouTube up to?
He never knew.
He never knew, no matter how much he looked at the analytics. Can I just say, Gray, like, people always ask us to watch different TV shows and movies and have a chat about them. And we're always open to this. And the one that a lot of people are asking about at the moment is the TV show Westworld. Have you had a look at it, by the way? Or no spoilers coming, by the way, people. We're not about to review it or anything. I'm just asking Gray if he's watched Westworld.
I have not watched it. I have seen 10,000 requests for me to watch Westworld. I did, as a child, watch the original movie or TV series.
It's based on a book. It's based on a book, I think, but there was a movie, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember very much about it except the broadest overline, but I know I saw the original as a child. But no, I have not actually watched Westworld. Have you?
I have watched maybe the first 4 episodes, and I'm not going to review it or spoil it, except to say I've stopped. If it is set as homework for whatever reason, I guess I will do it because, we do that for the Tims. But I certainly couldn't in good faith ask you to watch it.
Interesting.
You may love it. Lots of people certainly are loving the hell out of it. And everyone thinks you will love it and thinks I will love it. That certainly, for whatever reason, was not the case so far. Maybe it gets better. Maybe I was in a bad mood. Maybe I just don't like it very much. But I've stopped. So I'm not inclined to do it at the moment. So I'll leave that bowl in your court or sort of floating there for discussion another day. But we are seeing all the Westworld requests kind of maybe stop because I'm getting lots of emails about it and I'm a bit sick of it. So it's not like we haven't seen it. So you don't have to tell us because we don't know about the show. I've even watched the show. So if you're about to send me an email recommending it, you're still welcome to do that, but you don't need to do it because I am aware of the show.
Yeah, I feel like the volume of feedback on this has been so incredibly large that we do want to just touch upon it. We have heard, we are aware. I suspect I will probably watch it at some point, and then maybe we'll discuss it based on if there's something interesting to talk about there. But yes, you don't need to keep tweeting at Brady and I that we need to watch Westworld because we are very over aware of the existence of this. Although, again, I have to say, our audience is the best audience because they know what to do. People are just recommending the show and they're not saying anything, and that's perfect. And I always just want to say, I appreciate that from everybody. You're doing it the right way. Maybe we'll touch on it, maybe we won't, but we've certainly heard about it.
Oh, by the way, I watched that final episode. No spoilers again, but I watched that episode of Black Mirror that I hadn't watched, the 5th one, and I'm glad I did. Better than I expected. So if you didn't watch that one because we didn't talk about it much last time, it's worth a watch. You said it was the worst, and maybe you're right about that. I don't know, but still, the worst of Black Mirror is still pretty good, and I liked that episode.
Good. I'm glad you completed off the season there, Brady.
By the way, when we talked about the name of the show, Black Mirror, and I said I thought it was because the TV show holds a mirror up to society and reflects back what we're like to us, but with this black tinge. And to me, that seems obvious that's what it was. And then you came up with some lame-o reason that you thought it was called Black Mirror, which was basically along the lines of we all hold these little rectangular mirror-like devices, which are phones.
Right.
And I secretly thought to myself, Gray doesn't know what he's talking about. My explanation makes way more sense. Clearly, I'm right. And mine's a really cool reason. And I told my wife this, why do you think it's called Black Mirror? She totally agreed with me. I went onto Wikipedia and I was reading a quote from Charlie Brooker, who created Black Mirror, talking to The Guardian. And he said various things. And then he said, the black mirror of the title is the one you'll find on every wall, on every desk, in the palm of every hand, the cold, shiny screen of a TV, a monitor, a smartphone. I can't believe it. You were right.
Point to Gray.
My explanation is way better.
But mine is way righter.
Don't you think mine's better? It makes more sense? Mine reflects what the show is. Calling it Black Mirror just because we hold smartphones that are black. Black Mirror is about all sorts of things that doesn't even involve phones. But it's always holding a mirror up to our society with a dark angle and cast to it. Can't believe it.
Here's the thing. I think we're both right, Brady, in that the phone does contain a black mirror. And I think we can still interpret it in this way. That technology is a black mirror that reflects us back to ourselves. So I think we can both be right. But I'm righter. This episode of Hello Internet is brought to you in part by the one, the only, Squarespace. I do just have to say, Squarespace has been with us since the very beginning of this show, and they are one of the sponsors that makes this show and so many other podcasts that I enjoy happen. If you're listening to podcasts, if you're thinking of making a website, you should go with the sponsor that makes websites and makes podcasts happen, and that is Squarespace. They're the perfect starting point for choosing a domain or making a website or an online store or anything that you want to do with your digital presence online. They're what I use for the Very Hello Internet website. They're what I use for cgpgrey.com. And whenever anybody asks me about setting up a website, Squarespace is my default recommendation. Why is it my default recommendation? Because it's at the intersection of easy to use and powerful and beautiful looking and flexible. If you just want to put up a portfolio online just to showcase your work, just maybe a single page showing off what you can do with a contact form or something like that, that's really easy to do with Squarespace. If you want to have a complicated website with many different pages that's selling stuff, that's something that you can do. If you are a developer and you want to get into the code and customize everything to be exactly the way you want it to be, Squarespace can do that as well. If you never want to see a line of code for as long as you live, you never even have to know that that's a possibility with Squarespace. It's just fantastic all around. They have beautiful templates created by world-class designers. You can customize the look and feel and settings of your website. It's optimized for mobile right from the start. So, for example, my own web pages, I never have to think about doing a totally separate design for how is it going to look on the iPhone. Squarespace just handles that and it works. And I have to say, my personal favorite is I just never have to worry about it. I never have to worry that when I was trying to upgrade a server that's holding my website that I've broken something and now I have a big hassle on my hands. All of these worries are just gone with Squarespace. So you listen to podcasts, you like podcasts, you want to make a website, you're going to use Squarespace. Right now, go to squarespace.com. You can register a free domain name and start your free website right now. And when you decide that you want to sign up with Squarespace, just make sure to use the offer code HI to save 10%. This helps let Squarespace know that of the many podcasts they help bring into existence, it was ours that brought them to your attention. So please use that offer code HI when you sign up with Squarespace. And thanks again to Squarespace for supporting the show. Okay, Brady, I have a question for you that I feel like I don't know what your answer is going to be. And as we have touched upon in the show, I sometimes have like a very limited repertoire of conversation starters with people when I have to socialize. Of like, let's get into an argument about free will. Like, this is an interesting thing to talk about. And then people seem to always get riled up about it. I have a few of these that I try to keep in my back pocket. But there's one question that I've come across recently that people seem to react to very often in surprising ways that I'm kind of adding to this list. And the question is, would you eat synthetic meat? Like a cheeseburger that was grown in a lab. Is that something that you would feel comfortable eating? I'm asking this because I've been vaguely following this as a technology for a while, but it seems like in the past year, this is becoming a real thing that is probably within the next 5 years going to be relatively commercially viable, where there is lab-grown muscle tissue that is meat. And so there's a few companies that are doing this. And I feel like I have a very poor sense of how you're going to answer this question.
Well, let me start by saying, yeah, I think I would.
Oh, yeah?
That's probably it. I don't know. I have seen, I know they're making this stuff and it like, it's supposed to sizzle like meat and have blood. Because I live in a half vegetarian household, so I eat a lot of meat substitutes already because I have to. And so a lot of these things are already made in kind of weird ways, aren't they? All these corn products and things are made in interesting ways. I know they're not the same as synthetic muscle tissue, but they're already growing things to be meat-like, and I eat some of them. I don't like them as much as meat.
No, they're never as good.
No. Some of them surprise you, though. Occasionally I get surprised by how some of them can work okay. But synthetic meat, I think it would just depend on how good it was. I guess I haven't thought about any of the dilemmas to it, but I'm not too weirded out by it. I'm fine with it. Would you eat it?
I feel like I'm not too surprised by that. As you were just talking about, I feel like you're a relatively adventurous guy, and so I feel like you'd probably give almost anything a try, and then it's not surprising that it would come down to, does it taste good or does it not taste good? So I feel like I'm sort of unsurprised by that. But I have definitely come across people who seem like they find the idea terrifying or repulsive, but I have a hard time pinning down why, right? And I think that this is often a case with new technology stuff where people react poorly because it's a thing that's new, or they can't articulate their reasons as to why.
I go off it a little bit when you describe it as synthetically grown muscle tissue. I prefer it when you call it synthetic meat.
Right.
Just for the marketing people out there.
Yeah. What are we doing? We're lab growing carcasses. It's like, no, don't.
Yeah, when you call it like synthetic muscle tissue, it suddenly seems more wrong. It suddenly seems like, oh, hang on, that's not supposed to exist. So I'm trying to think of a better name for it. New meat.
Yeah. We need to call them like freedom burgers or something, right? Like that's the much better name, right? It just has nothing to do with what it is.
Meat 5000.
Yeah. My feeling on this is, okay, so I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction here, but I think like once this becomes commercially viable, because right now it is just ridiculously expensive. But like with any of these things, like with gene testing technology, like with anything, the price is dropping very rapidly. And I think there's going to come some point at which those lines cross of how much does it cost to raise an actual cow to full-grown adulthood and slaughter it, right, and ship the burgers, versus how much does it cost to grow synthetic meat in a lab. Like, I think those lines are going to cross where synthetic meat becomes cheaper. And I bet that once that happens, the people who are having negative reactions to this, I think this is going to become pretty standard pretty fast. It's an interesting thing because, okay, this is going to be like a totally overblown metaphor, right? I want people to understand.
Oh,
right, I know.
That's my kind of thing, right?
I know. I know
like
that you will like this, right? But before I say the words, I want people to understand that I'm aware that the thing that I'm about to say is an overblown metaphor. But I think the synthetic meat reminds me of slavery. So I think this is one of these things where if you go back and you look at the historical records, people at the time, like in the 1700s, like letters from the founding fathers, people knew that slavery was a bad thing, but it took a long time before we actually got rid of it. And my personal theory on this is that a lot of the reasons why various countries got rid of slavery at the various times that they did has much more to do with like the economics of the time and the available technology at the time than it does to do with the idea that people suddenly woke up and realized, oh, slavery, what a terrible idea. Like, this is an awful thing to do to our fellow human beings. Like, I think there's a kind of technological economic change that encourages those sorts of things to happen at one time or another.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to go through the exact same thing with synthetic meat in the next maybe 10 years or so. That I don't think there's anybody who really argues for the way we currently produce meat as like a great, humane, amazing thing to do. But I think we consume so much meat because of the economics of it and because of how much people like the taste of it. But I think like as soon as these lines cross and it makes economic sense to be using synthetic meat, we're going to have like a sort of similar thing to slavery, where it's going to be very easy for people on the other side of this to be saying like, well, obviously factory farming was such a horrifically inhumane thing to do, but we're only going to be able to do that once the economics also make sense.
So we'll start freeing the cows once we can afford to free the cows.
Exactly, right? It's like, we know it's bad now, just like people always knew slavery wasn't a great idea. But I think when people are thinking about enacting change and when people think like, oh, we need to change the way factory farming is done so that it's more humane, I come down on the other side of this of like, if you really want to affect change in this way, you should encourage research into synthetic meat, right? And you should try to get everyone you know on board with eating synthetic meat. Like, that's the way you're actually going to change this kind of thing. You're never going to change the factory farm. You can only change the economics around the factory farm to make it unprofitable compared to the alternatives.
I don't think it's an overblown metaphor. I can think of someone that lives in my house that will agree with you. I don't know whether my wife would agree that with your synthetic meat argument. I've never discussed it with her, whether that's the key. But certainly I know lots of vegetarians who would be quite comfortable with the way we treat animals being described as slavery. It's quite an inflammatory thing to say, but I don't think that means it's wrong.
Yeah, maybe inflammatory is better, but this is one of these things where I'm just kind of curious to see if it plays out the way that I think it will play out, that it'll suddenly be like, oh, factory farming, which we've always known is bad, becomes suddenly intolerable, right? Like, we as a society suddenly decide that it's absolutely intolerable. And it's like, we don't really talk directly about how it's related to the fact that synthetic meat is cheaper, in the same way that, at least in the limited way that I've looked into it, particularly within the United States, like a lot of things around slavery seem to be related to the farming technology at the time, like in what required a lot of manpower versus what didn't. And it's like, oh, it's funny how as the value of manpower goes down, like the calls for getting rid of slavery go up and also become more effective. I just wonder if that's going to be the same kind of case with the synthetic meat. I don't know.
I find it interesting that when you're making the argument, it's almost like a bit of an animal rights argument, which is a nice thing to be making, that you're stopping short, though. You keep saying factory farming, like you're almost saying it would still be okay to eat a sheep if it's brought up in nice circumstances. It's just the factory sheep you shouldn't eat. It's almost like, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly grey. If you're going to say that animals have these rights, why are you stopping at factory farming? Why aren't you saying maybe we shouldn't be eating animals at all, and we're just doing it out of economic expediency?
Well, I guess I'm saying factory farming here because the horrible thing is like the life condition and the death of the animal. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I could imagine a scenario where if, let's say, like the farm that exists on my package of eggs, which is like a perfect farm and some hills where some chickens are running around and they're being totally happy chickens. Like if that farm actually exists, and the chickens are living a happy life right up until the very end, and they never see the very end coming, I don't necessarily think there's anything bad with that. If like a chicken lives a happy life and never suffers, and we also eat the chicken, I'm not sure I can really get behind the idea of that being terribly morally wrong. I don't know. I feel like I haven't really sat down and thought that through to its full extent, but I feel like I'm pretty okay with the idea of eating an animal that has lived a happy life. I think I'm okay with eating happy chickens.
Before we go, I think there may be a call coming through for you.
No,
here, Greg.
Brady, I don't want to hear it. I swear to God, I'm clenching up already.
I don't know. I've got a feeling.
No. I've been good though, Brady. I've been good. Oh, Jesus.
Let's find out. Let's answer this call.
Oh God, it's so horrible.
Ho, ho, ho! Hello! It's Santa here. Who am I speaking to?
CGP Grey.
Very well.
Doesn't sound
I was
like me.
hoping you would answer. If I remember correctly, you're 5 years old. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Super. Listen, I've decided to personally call you because I've heard that you've been a bit of a naughty boy.
That's not true.
I'm afraid that means I've had to put your name on my naughty list. The elves and I are not impressed. You must
Not
behave
true.
yourself and show that you can be the good child that I know you are. My elves have told me that you can be very well behaved.
Don't you tell me
Now
what to
is
do,
your
Santa.
chance. Can you promise me that you'll be good from now on?
I'm rebelling against this system. No, I don't know. I don't like this at all. No.
It was jolly nice talking to you, but I have to go now. You know, I'm very busy preparing for Christmas. I'm going to take my new sleigh for a test drive. Remember, it's very important to behave well all year round. I hope I'll talk to you again soon. Merry Christmas!
Oh, now he's being all nice. He just put you on the naughty list. Imagine that, getting a call from Santa being told directly you're on the naughty list. That's it. You may as well just give up.
It's just a total Black Mirror nightmare. It really is.